Hey lads, exciting video today. I am going to be doing a recap on my first ever classical tournament. It's a 3-day tournament, 2 games a day, 90 minutes plus 15 seconds a move, I think. Never played a chess game so long in my life, but we will see how we can do today. And I'm hoping that I can get all wins. I'm not able to play the 5th game, so I took a bye. But you get a half point for the bye if you do opt into that, from the get-go. So I'm already starting with half a point. I'm hoping that I can get 5.5 points in this tournament and really boost my rating a wee bit. I'm sitting around 950 right now. Let's see how we do. Here is game 1 of the tournament. We were playing against somebody named CJ, and this game I got the white pieces, so I was quite excited. We played a typical Jabava opening, where he played actually all the top engine moves and went for one of the most annoying lines against the Jabava, where they bring the bishop out to b4. This move is quite frustrating, and you can already see on the evaluation bar that black has a slight edge, and the reason is because you can't go for this typical idea. You can't go for a pawn storm, which is quite good. You can't do a lot. You're just sort of defending. You're trying to defend against this pin on your king here. So I brought my bishop out. He brought his pawn forwards, top engine move, and he's threatening to play here. So I really have to take the pawn. You don't want to force him to kick your bishop, and then your bishop becomes bad and your position is just really congested. And then his knight's coming in and attacking this twice, and you still can't move this piece. So just took the pawn. And here I made the inaccurate move to kick his bishop, and he can take the pawn back, which looks tempting, but if he had maybe considered this other move, which would have been to take my knight, I think this just looks really bad for me. I've got triple isolated c pawns, and yes, I'm up a pawn, but this does not look very fun. It doesn't look like I can get this queen out very easily. It's kind of blocked in here. I'm not really sure if I'm able to do all that much. His queen can come here and attack this pawn and this pawn and this pawn, and things are just looking kind of ugly for me. So I think if he had gone for that, that would have been a really good idea. But he took the pawn back, and this meant that my pawns aren't going to be isolated and doubled here. I'm still going to have this structure here, so I was feeling a lot happier when he took that pawn back. I moved my knight to b5, looking at this square for this fork on the king and the rook, and he played the best move, which was to stop the defense of this square. I was attacking this square with both pieces. That's where I want to jump. So he stops that and forces my bishop to move away. I think this move that I played is maybe the top engine move. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, the top engine move here is g5, and I'm not quite sure why it's only giving it a thumbs up, but it is the best move here. And he tries to kick my knight away. So when he did this, I was quite excited, because my whole idea here is take the knight, double his pawns. He can't take back with the queen, because if he does, then we jump in here and we fork the pieces. So I knew that I could take this first, and he can't take this knight because I'm hitting his queen. So he's got to recapture this here. If he recaptures with queen, we jump in. So he has to take with pawn. Now his pawns are doubled, and I can safely retreat my knight. So I was feeling actually pretty confident. But here, actually, his position is not all that bad. He can probably get these pieces into the center and castle his king and have a pretty solid game here. Still has a lot of control over the center of the board. But here he moved his rook over onto the open file, looking at my weakness on g2. And this is a mistake, because he's got a pawn hanging. I didn't capture it immediately. Instead, I went for this move, which looked a little more exciting to me. I thought if he takes here, I can take here. I'll just show you what I was thinking about. And here he can't come back, because I'm holding that square, and I'm threatening to go h8, forcing his king to stay in the center of the board and defend this pawn. And then I thought maybe there's some way that I could castle here and just chuck all my pieces into the middle of the board and go after the king. So that's why I brought the queen over. But he didn't go for this pawn. Instead, he just moved back to defend his pawn. And I think this is not a move that I would ever play. And the reason is, if you move a piece onto a square, you generally don't want to move the piece straight back. It kind of feels really bad and really wrong to do something like that in chess. A better idea maybe would have been to bring his knight over and defend his rook. So yes, I'm going to grab a pawn, but then the rook's defended with the knight, and I'm not threatening to take it. That kind of move just seems like it might work a lot better. There's also this move. I don't know if he considered this, but it looks pretty interesting. I don't know if it's very good. I actually haven't looked at it at all, but even just like getting a piece into the action a bit more. Yeah, I could take here, but then he can defend his rook, and he's got another piece involved, and he's looking a wee bit more aggressive. But the move that he played was to go here, and this is just not good because it allows me to develop even more. He spent 2 moves keeping his pieces all in the same position, and I got a queen out, and now I've castled, and I'm looking down the center of the board ready to attack. Here he moved his bishop into the center to defend this pawn, and here I played the move knight f3, and the reason I did this is I was actually looking for a wee trick. Now, for black, you might be saying, oh, the evaluation's just gone up, there's a tactic. And you're like, oh, there's a fork here. And actually, this is what I was hoping he would play, because if he plays this, I can actually just capture, and he can't retake because I'm hitting his queen. So I was playing for tricks here when I moved the knight out, which is not something you should do in chess. You should never play for tricks, because he could do the best move. Maybe he could move his queen here, go after this pawn twice, maybe sack his bishop, I take, and then his queen comes to this square, hitting my king, forcing my king over, and his knight comes in, and he just starts tearing open everything. He could maybe push this pawn forwards, castle, get his rook in. So I really shouldn't play for tricks. So that was not good of me to do that. But he doesn't play the top engine move, coming over here and looking for the attack. He just brings his queen here. So now I start to see something that I can go for. I know he can't castle this way. I think he's probably going to castle this way. So I thought, where's my bishop, my light squared bishop, best placed? And it looks like this diagonal looks the strongest. So I bring the bishop to this diagonal, and he castles, which is actually the top engine move. But now I'm seeing, oh, this looks really good. This bishop is not defending this pawn. This rook is defending. So this pawn is defended only once. He can't defend with this because he'll be in check, and it's illegal for him to move this bishop. So I saw I have 2 attackers on this pawn. So if you've got 2 attackers on a pawn and the enemy's only got 1 defender, you can take it. Now I did consider for a wee bit, do I take with knight? Do I take with rook? The engine you can see over here says taking with a rook is plus 2.24. and taking with knight is plus 1.97. I actually played take with knight, so that's the mistake. But it just looked a wee bit stronger because I'm attacking this pawn and I'm attacking his strongest piece, which is his queen. If I had taken with rook, I just felt like I'm not quite sure what I'm going for. He can just defend here, and I would much rather have a knight here tempoing and attacking another pawn. It just didn't seem all that right. But apparently the engine likes it the most. Sometimes I think it's hard to know why an engine likes something, but I mistakenly took with the knight. So here his best move is obviously going queen a5 and getting out of the danger here. Yeah, I win a pawn, but he needs to move his queen. Instead, he sacked his rook. You know, he's going to be down the exchange here, so rooks come off. He attacks both my pieces, and this one's attacked twice and only defended by my queen. So I'm like, I need to deal with this one first. So we take his bishop with check. So he can't take my rook here because he's got to deal with his king. So here he takes my bishop back, and here we just retreat the rook. And I retreated it to this square because I saw this little idea that he might have. And coming here, again, looks really tempting. I had a lot of time in the game to think through these moves. So you might be like, oh, Owen, did you really spot all this? I did, actually. I thought about what's the best square for the rook? What's the danger? Okay, this is the danger here, but is that actually danger? And I thought if he does go for this, it's just a way for me to simplify pieces down a wee bit. So he did go for it. I moved my rook over, and yes, he can take here, but I can actually take his bishop, pinning his queen to his king, and my queen is defending my rook. So he took, I attack, and I was like, I'm going to win a queen. And he moved his knight. I just forgot that the knight could block. So here I took the pawn, just not wanting to have to deal with this. And now all I was looking for was a queen trade. So when his king moved over here to b8, I'm able to move my queen up, and he can't move his queen away because it's pinned to the king. He could try to block, but if he blocks here with the pawn, then I can grab this one. And if he blocks with the knight, then I grab his queen. So I knew that blocking wasn't quite working, and I was going to be able to achieve a queen trade, which is what we went for. And then the rest of the game kind of peters out slowly. I know that this piece is pinned to the king, so I try to prepare an attack for it, which is what I'm able to do. And now he's going to lose this knight. Take, lots of exchanges, and now I'm just up a rook. And I just tried to look for the simplest way to get rid of all of his pawns and check him just with my rook and my king, which is what I went for here until he resigned in this position. If he comes back, this is checkmate. And if he goes forwards, we just follow the king until he does come back, and then it would be checkmate. So he lost the game there. Right before getting checkmated. That was a really fun game for me. I felt like I played pretty well, but I obviously had some mistakes in the opening. The engine says I played with an 85.5% accuracy, and my opponent played with a 78.9. Now, I did run this engine on slightly different settings just to double check, because it was saying some moves were mistakes and some were inaccuracies. So I just decided to chuck it up on a deeper analysis, which normally it's on a standard analysis where it takes about 5 seconds, but a deep analysis where it takes about 20 seconds per move. Per all the moves, instead of a quick 5-second analysis from the computer, I did a deep analysis, and so this is what the computer rated me. If you chuck it on a really deep analysis, then it lowers my rating a wee bit, so we're not going to do that. We're going to keep it on just a deep analysis so that I get a happy 85.5 and I feel good about myself. What did I learn from game one here? Maybe play the opening slower, take my time. I kind of blitzed my moves out, and I didn't need to allow him to have tripled C pawns. And also I learned, don't play for tricks. I don't need to be playing for tricks, because I should always expect my opponent to play the best move. So that is something I'm not going to be doing anymore. I saw a trick and I just went for it quick. Thankfully, I was able to do okay, but I shouldn't risk it in the future. Let's jump into game two, where you'll see me play against somebody who I've played in multiple tournaments before. We got the black pieces, and it's actually quite an exciting one with several things that I think we can learn. So check out this game. Game two was against a little girl named Vivia, who we've played several times, and you've probably seen me review some of the games. We did have a game on a previous tournament where we have on the channel where I had the black pieces and I played the Dutch against her, so that's what we went for again. Although in that game, I remember that I didn't play so well because I brought my queen out. I think I brought my queen out to h5 in that game. So I was thinking when I started this game, I need to play better than I did the previous time that I played her. So her rating, 645. I haven't lost to her. I think I have 3 wins, and so this was the 4th time that I was playing her. And so was feeling pretty confident, but you never know with the black pieces. I can really muck everything up. So let's see what we did here. She played d4. I played f5, the Dutch, and she played c4. I played e6. She goes for this fianchetto on the light squared fianchetto there on the king side. I bring my knight out, and she brings her bishop out. So opening, a lot of these tournament players, all these kids, they like to know their book moves. She's booked up on this. She knows what all the top engine moves. I knew we weren't going to get much right out of the opening. So I just continue my development. She castles, I castle, and I play the classical Dutch, which is this move, not allowing the pawn to jump in. And here I go for the line that I know. You want to swap off here and give her doubled pawns here. She moves her rook, so I swap off. And apparently this isn't completely correct when they move the rook, but if she had tried to do something else, like maybe defending with her queen, I believe this is the top move. Yeah, this is the top move. So I'm not sure why, like, moving the rook, it makes this not such a good move, but I didn't feel too bad about it. So we took here, she took, I moved my knight to d7. She pulls her bishop out, which was really weird looking, but I saw she was targeting this. I thought maybe I'm going to have to leave my bishop here on e7 to protect, but I wasn't too worried because I had the c7 pawn. I moved my queen over, getting ready to start this blunderous attack, and she moves her pawn to e4, challenging the center. And I know whenever people play e4, you're always supposed to take it. Now, I suppose my best move here is maybe knight to b6. Going after this pawn and maybe tempoing this bishop, but I did consider it, but I thought I'm just going to take the pawn because I know that it's going to be a very decent move. Take, and I bring my knight out to f6, tempoing the rook. Rook goes back, and queen comes out to h5. I am surprised by this engine analysis saying that rook all the way back is best. I guess sometimes when you move back all the way, unlike the first game, it can be the best move. It just always feels wrong to me. And so when she moved all the way back, I was just feeling super confident. Like, it gave me a lot of confidence. I thought, she's moved her rook twice, and now I've been able to develop my queen for free. And now, you know, I'm starting to have more of an attack. She moved her knight to h4, and I moved my rook over to b8 because I saw she was maybe threatening to take this. I didn't want to also have to, like, if I wanted to push this pawn, for her to be able to hit my rook there on that side. I also was thinking, if I push here, I want to get this rook over here looking at the queen maybe, then I need something defending this pawn. So that's why I went for this move. It says it's not a great move. My best move here would have been to take the queens, swap the queens off. But when you're attacking, you never want to take the queens off. So I wasn't looking at that. B8's actually the second best move, which I'm pretty happy to see. B8, she takes the queens off. I take, and here she pushes. And as soon as she made this move, and I think this is the biggest point to learn from, I knew that my position was winning. I knew it immediately. D5 is never a good move against the classical Dutch. It's just never good. I've played this opening probably 50, 60 times. And anytime I see D5, I always, in the review, it says that I have an advantage. It looks good because if I take here, then yeah, completely winning. She wins a bishop. But even if this bishop wasn't here, like, the rooks can open up on this file they're controlling. The bishop can slide over here and look at this diagonal. You know, things are just looking very good. She's got a check here looking at the king. So I knew that, like, I always know that the taking is bad. So they're always wanting you to take, but you don't have to take. Here I took her her knight off, doubled her pawns on the H file, and then I push. So now my position is just dominating. And the reason this push is so good is because it completely locks this bishop out. This bishop is really bad. Yes, it can come back to here, but what's it doing on this diagonal? Not a whole lot. This bishop's bad, and look whose bishop is really good now. Mine is super powerful. So this is a dream situation. So here she pulled her bishop back to f1. I guess she maybe wanted to reroute here and look at this h7 pawn. and I just bring my rook in. I decide I'm just going to fork both these pieces. She can't defend this one here on h4, so I'm going to win it. She pulls her other bishop into the game, tempoing my rook, so I take the free pawn. She moves her king over, not wanting me to get a free check here maybe, and I bring my bishop in. Now I see if I can get my rook here, then I can maybe make a checkmate threat on this king, and stuff starts to look really good here. She brings her bishop in, so I decide I could move my rook over. I could throw in a check here and win the rook. Maybe that's an exchange, but I go for the check first. And yeah, she could take it. This is her best move. But if she doesn't, then maybe she blocks here. And if she does that, then I can take it. And if she doesn't do that, she's going to swap off bishops. And I'm going to win a bishop here with the king. Fork with the bishop. She moves her king, so I get the fork. She moves her bishop, and that's her only move. But I'm not actually threatening to take this, because if I do, then I lose my own bishop. But thankfully, when I do this fork, the king has no other squares, so the bishop's forced to come. And now I can take with check. She moves back. I take the pawn, and yes, she can take this if she wants, but if she does, then I win this rook in the corner. So I knew that she probably wasn't going to. She brought her bishop back to defend this pawn. Not quite sure what she was thinking here, but I knew that this was a forced checkmate, so all I do is set it up. Bishop f3, and I actually wrote on my score sheet rook h1 was mate on whatever move she makes. Like there's no move here that she can do that rook h1 isn't mate. So I knew that was my next move, and so I actually wrote it on my score sheet, and I saw her glance at my score sheet, and and as soon as she saw that, she moved rook e2, and so then I played the mate. She told me as soon as the game ended that I played really well, and she shook my hand, and I thought she was being really respectful. It can be really hard to lose a game, especially a classical game where you've got a lot of time to think, and you can really be kicking yourself for maybe not seeing a checkmate here or something. But she was real respectful, and I thought she was very polite. I think the big thing you can learn from this game is if you're ever facing against a Dutch, it's a tricky opening, just remember, never play d5. The engine said that I played with an 85.6 and my opponent played with a 66.2. So far, 2 games in the mid 80s. Feeling pretty confident. The next opponent that I played was on the following day. So I was coming in rested, feeling very excited, and he was 2-0. So he hadn't lost either. I was 2-0. And so this was kind of the battle of the titans to see who was going to be 3-0. So you'll really enjoy game 3. I felt like I played very well, but I won't give away what happens. And let's jump into game 3 right after this announcement from me talking about how I'm feeling. Very happy with how day 1 went, and we are now on our way to day 2. We're wearing our Blunderman hoodie again. Go grab one if you want, and get a hat or whatever you fancy, and let's win both of our games today. I really hope that my rating could go up a lot from this tournament. There are no prize pools for the people who are in the under 1200 rated section, which is what I'm in. There is like a $600, $700 prize pool for people in the higher brackets, so I could be winning money at this tournament if I was rated higher. So we got to feed the family, and we got to get our chess rating up, and then we'll be able to make a living off this board, right? Okay, lads, let's jump into a recap right after this. I'm going there now, so I'm going to go play him. But you will see us jumping into a recap. Wish me luck. Game 3 was against somebody named Sri Sai Mahadev. Don't know how badly I butchered that name, but he was a young guy who one of my friends actually had played before, and he said he's quite a good player. So I was quite excited to play this game. Let me just preface this by saying, before we even look at anything, this was the best game that I have played over the board so far in my career. So hopefully that excites you. Let's watch this one. My opponent blitzes out his move so fast. He goes for your typical London. And I know that the London people always just get the same moves in. They get the knight here, they get the bishop here, they get the pawns in this kind of weirdo chain. They pull this knight out here, or sometimes even over here. This bishop comes here looking at stuff, and they castle. It's literally the same thing every time. So we do our quick setup, and I'm seeing all these typical moves from the London, and I'm thinking, all right, I need to punish this kid. In this position, I play the move d6 because I think I'm going to go for the classical Dutch again. It worked pretty well against Vivia in the last game, and we're stopping the knight jumping here. And I also knew there was a wee trap here that I'd seen before online, and he fell right into it. You might be looking at this position thinking, okay, why is c4 such a blunder? But I saw it, and as soon as he played c4, I knew that I had something, and I thought through it, and I knew what I had to play. We have a beautiful continuation here. The continuation goes pawn to e5. And this move, you might be like, okay, it hits his bishop, and if he moves his bishop, what do we have? Got a beautiful fork here on his bishop and his knight, so he can't move his bishop away. If he takes my pawn with his bishop, then I'm going to recapture him, and I'm going to get a bishop for a pawn. Pretty nice. If he doesn't do either of those two things, he's got two more options. He could take my pawn or push the pawn. If he pushes the pawn, he's hitting my knight, which could be maybe annoying, but not super worried about that, because if he pushes his pawn, I can jump here and still hit his bishop. And this bishop is not defended. Why is it not defended? Because he moved c4. So that's where this whole trick falls in. He moves c4, so this piece is undefended. Also, if he were to take here, look what happens when I recapture. I'm hitting his bishop, and I'm hitting his undefended other bishop. So if he moves this one, then I can take immediately on d3, or I could go here and fork both the pieces, but best move would just be to take the free piece. His decision in this position was he decided to push, so I just maintained the threat by attacking this unprotected bishop. He moves his bishop, and I take the free bishop over here. It's sitting there, might as well grab it. He recaptures the pawn, and then I take off the bishop because I'm thinking, let's just trade off pieces when I'm ahead. He takes. I look at the position, and I see that my pawn is threatened by his queen, but I'm protecting it, so now I can just start to develop. So I move my rook to the open file. He moves his rook to the open file. We move our bishop out so that our rooks are going to be closer to being connected. He pulls his knight in, and I move my knight over, looking at this tasty looking pawn. I'm not super worried about this knight. Yeah, it's an outpost, but I think here I can actually take it off and win a pawn here with my queen. So he decides he doesn't want any part of that, but I can still do the same thing here. So I take his knight off, he takes with a pawn, and now there's this pawn that is looking very weak. It can't be defended by another pawn. This one is stuck. It can't get to f5 to defend, and there's no pawn on the d file. So feeling pretty good here. I just make some room for my king, and I also want to maybe bring the knight back here so I can hit this pawn. He pushes this pawn, and yeah, I probably could have taken here. I don't know, maybe that was a better move. Not entirely sure, but I don't think it would have been bad if I did. But I thought just moving and setting up my own pieces on my side of the board is probably easier to do. he moves here. I move my bishop here, hitting this diagonal. Super strong diagonal for the bishop. I push this so he's not hitting b7. And here he goes in for the push. I move my rook up to just stop his pawn pushing. And I'm okay if he takes here because I can take with queen. I'm okay if he takes here because I can take with the a pawn. Instead he pushes, which I wasn't expecting, but just what it is. And here I move my queen over, so now we have 2 attackers on this pawn and he's got 2 defenders. Here he moves his queen in. And it was in this position that I was kind of kicking myself after my next move because I saw that I could have gone here. And his rook can't come here. So it's going to go to b1 or to d1. And let's say he goes here to b1 to tempo my bishop. I can just come here and take off a knight. You know, I'm trading off even more material. So I was feeling really good about this if I was able to get this in. But I didn't see this. I could have grabbed a free pawn and traded off pieces. Instead, I move my knight over to go after this pawn. He moves his knight in. And so then I just take the pawn because it's only defended twice and I'm now attacking it 3 times. He moves his rook over just to defend this pawn and maybe free up his knight. And here I move my king over because I see I can't move this rook at the moment. It's not able to move because the queen is hitting the king on the other side. So this just frees me up. He moves his rook over. I move my queen up, getting ready for the triple cheeseburger stack. He moves his h pawn or his a pawn. I defend it. He moves his b pawn. I take. And here, if he were to take, that's fine. But I have a check here, trading off and then winning the rook. So he doesn't fall for that trick. Instead, he moves rook c2 and I go for it anyway. It was at this point in the game that my opponent took about 32 minutes to make his next move. And I was like, why are you waiting 32 minutes? You literally have 2 options. You literally only have 2 moves. You can move your king here or you can take. Now, I thought maybe he's really considering moving his king here. I'm going to take here and then he's going to keep pieces on. But it took 32 minutes for him to take my rook, which is the obvious move. And clearly I can take back. He moves his king. I can go here and force the queens off, which is what I did. But he didn't spend 32 minutes calculating this move, which I really think maybe he did, and then finally decided after 32 minutes that it wasn't the right decision. But like this position for him, he's really got no counterplay. When the queens come off, you're going to just lose. So I think in this position, he really should have tried to just move the king, and then I take the free piece, and then maybe he's got his king, I'm sorry, his queen, and he can try to play for something. I don't know what, but it definitely looks better than what happened. This position took so long, actually took 32 minutes. Sorry, I might have already said that I sat and drew a picture. I'll just put this in the big camera so you can see it. This guy is playing a game of chess. He says checkmate, and he's holding the bishop, and the guy says, "I'm not your mate." Oh. And it's the moment of realization. Yeah, he said checkmate. Not like he's an actual mate, like he was actually just saying checkmate, like he's going to checkmate somebody. I don't know why I'm showing you this, but I was really bored and I couldn't sit there for 32 minutes. I couldn't think about the game. I just had to draw something. So that's what I did. I sat there and drew that. Anyway, yeah, so I took, he moved his king. I swap off the queens. He moves his rook over. And here I play this beautiful move, attacking his pawn and his knight. He can't take my pawn because then I win his rook. So he moves his knight. I stop all of his counterplay by just moving my pawn. If you ever can move a pawn 2 squares from a knight, it really counters that knight very well because the knight can't jump because the two squares of pawns attacking. He pushes his pawn, I move my knight in. He pushes his pawn, I move my knight in. He pushes his pawn. And here I was thinking, I mean, I could just go here and block his knight and then take the pawn. But I thought, I'll just get all my pieces involved. He moves his knight back. And here I go for that block, defending the bishop, but primarily just stopping his defense of this pawn. He takes, I take with pawn. If I take with a knight, then his rook is defending again, and I have doubled pawns here. So this just is good for me. And now I can just push my pawns, attack his rook. And here I knew he was going to take this. He was still taking like probably 5 minutes a move, and it was really boring. But I knew he would make this move quickly because he was going to look for this plan. And I was honestly just trying to figure out ways that I could stop him from thinking so long. Like, I just wanted to let him have a solid plan so that he wouldn't take so long playing the game. Now, I do understand, like, I shouldn't be upset that my opponents are thinking, but it is frustrating when it's like their moves are so obvious or like they don't have any counterplay. I mean, I know like he's a good player and he's probably, but I'm not an idiot, you know? I'm not going to blunder a piece. I mean, I don't think I've ever done that in my life. But anyway, here I just block the rook because the rook's looking at this, going for a check. And when I trade off, he promotes to a queen, and maybe he could get his rook in here, and you know, and I move my king up here, and maybe his queen could have some kind of like perpetual. I'm not quite sure how, but yeah, maybe a perpetual here to here, just cycling back and forth on these two squares. So I didn't want to allow that, so I just moved the knight back. And here I push the pawn, and I'm ready to just promote one of these. So game's basically going to be over. I could literally just sack my knight here. If he takes, I get a queen. But yeah, was a really fun game. And aside from all the jokes, I really did enjoy playing this guy. I thought he was a very solid player. But let's see what the engine says about my accuracy this game. 94.6. My opponent even played with an 86.2, so he played better than my previous two games in a losing position. But yeah, we played with a 94.6. Like, no inaccuracies the entire game. I don't know if you can see this. Let me just move my big head real quick. I'll just move this up here. You can see 0 inaccuracies, 0 mistakes, 0 misses, 0 blunders. That was a game to be proud of. Exciting stuff. Pretty happy. This guy was a 1082 rated opponent. You can see up here. And yeah, was feeling very confident going into game 4. I was 3-0, and the opponent that I was going to play in game 4 was also 3-0. So check out game 4. This is day 2, game 2, game 4 of my tournament. And I was very excited because I was getting the white pieces. And I think this game is a very, very exciting one where I actually used a strategy that maybe none of you know of. My opponent was probably looking at me like, what is this guy doing? But I'll show you what my strategy was, and you can tell me what you think about it. But let's jump into game 4. Many of you might not know this, but I'm actually a 6th grade school teacher, and my opponent in the next game, his name was Pratham, and he was a student in 6th grade. Game 4, we got the white pieces, so we went for our typical Jabava, and as soon as we saw his bishop come out, we started blitzing f3. Put my own bishop on f4, which I know is an inaccuracy, but still went for this because I wanted to get into a position that I knew well. Back into book, we went g4 and then h4 and swapping the bishops off. I've played this position so many times. And castling, I know all my moves are best moves, and he castles, and I push for e4. Now, there's always these 2 pawn breaks in this position. You can go for e4, or you can go for g5. And
I normally would want to go for g5, but he's already castled, so I didn't think going for g5 was all that great. Take seems okay, but also g5, he can play his knight here. Tempo my bishop. Bishop's got to slide all the way back. Still strong piece, but then he can take here, and things are a wee bit more confusing. So I didn't want to go for this. Instead, I push e4, which is one of the top recommendations by the engine. And he makes this move, putting his knight on b8. And when he did this, I really had a long think. I knew that it wasn't a good move. But he told me afterwards that he made this move because he didn't know any other way to get his knight into the action over here. He couldn't come forwards because of this pawn on d4. Just sort of stopping his knight, and maybe he could move his queen and then bring his knight in here, but then it's like not on the greatest square. But yeah, coming around this way was really the only option he felt he had. Now here I could have just been solid and played king b1, which is a move that I knew about. I just wasn't sure if I should go for it. The real move that I miss is g5. And if I go g5 now and his knight goes over, then I can start breaking in the middle and his knight's off on the side of the board, not near where it needs to be. So that's what I should have done. But I foolishly just took, and he takes back with his knight. So his knight here is able to stay in the action. But if it had been over here, I would have been in a much better position. So I think I've already lost my opportunity to get ahead in this game. I have a slight advantage, but it's not anything to be excited about. Here I swap off the knights, and he takes with this pawn, which seems to be a bit risky because like I can check here, and I'm looking at his king, but he can just bring his knight in, and this knight wants to come in. So I was like, I really shouldn't give him the opportunity to develop where he wants to develop. So instead, I just bring my other knight in. He brings his bishop over, we swap off, and now I foolishly play g5. In this position is kind of my last opportunity to really have an attack, and I could have gone f4 and brought all the pawns onto the fourth row, and then maybe I could attack through the center. So like, let's say I go here, let's say he goes knight c6, which is probably the move he wants to go, f5 now, and if he goes e5 here, then I can take. And yes, he can take here, but my position is actually pretty good because I have g3. Looking at this, how does he defend it? He could play here maybe, but it's not super obvious. Maybe c4 because he wants to checkmate me. But I have b3 here, and it kind of shuts down everything that he wants to do. So yeah, he could come in, we could swap off pieces here, but I don't think he has a great position here. He could come here, and if I take, then he could swing the rook over and look, but I was feeling like this is probably what I need to look for in the future. Unfortunately, I don't go for that. I instead go for g5, and he just pushes, and I move my rook over to the f file, trying to maybe push this pawn now, which is a wee bit too late. And yeah, nothing really happens. And it was in this position that I spent considerable time considering all my moves. So I already showed you what I drew on the back of this score sheet, a beautiful picture. But on the back of this one, I started writing in code. Now you might look at this and be like, what is that? Let me show you. I started writing all my moves in some sort of weirdo Korean language because I can read and write Korean, but I thought my opponent might be able to see what I'm writing if I write in English and know exactly what I'm thinking. But yeah, I kind of wrote in Korean a wee bit, and it doesn't really make sense. Probably to a Korean, they would be like, what does this even mean? The camera's really confused right now, but you can see here, this is the symbol for N. So this was knight, and A and Sa. So A is for A and Sa is for 4. So knight A4. If you look on the board here, you can see I was really considering knight A4. The other moves that I was really considering, knight A4, queen to b5. And I thought the knight can come here. And then according to all my writing here, I wrote b yuk, which is b6, because yuk is the Korean word for 6. I went real in depth with nobody ever being able to know what my brain was going on. I didn't want my opponent to have a clue what I was thinking. Honestly, if you want to improve at chess, just learn Korean. Like, it'll help you so much. But here, I actually kind of wish I went for this, because I never actually saw f4 here, hitting this piece and this piece. And so, yeah, he can't really take here, because then I win his rook. That would have been cool. And I probably would have gone for that if I continued this analysis on my paper. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of ideas here. I even considered for a while this move, forking this, and then, you know, I spent ages, and then I put a wee X right there. You can see that. Okay, you saw that. Cool. I put a wee X there because I thought we can't do that. He can just take my queen. So I really spent ages looking at every single move. The top moves here are king b1, which I did think about, but I just thought it was a wee bit too passive. The other move is f4, which is honestly the move I should have gone for. And then the third engine choice, which is basically just as good, is knight a4, which is the one I went for. Which is not the one I went for. I mean, a3, the big mistake. Not actually awful. So I went a4, and he brought his knight over, and I could see his idea. He wants to come here, tempo my queen, and threaten checkmate. So I moved my knight here. This way, if he does come here to tempo, then I can move my queen over. But I'm also tempoing his queen because it's with check. And so he moves his queen out of danger. I move my pawn up to defend my knight. And I really spent ages looking at all these moves. He brought his rook over. And so here was where I made my mistake. And I should have gone knight back here just to tempo his queen. And this knight's kind of misplaced on the edge of the board. It's kind of struggling. But I foolishly went for this move. And the reason this move is so bad is because this rook on the back rank is not defended. He took here. I was thinking I can just recapture. I know this is pinned, but my queen is holding my rook. But I forgot that the rook on f1 is going to fall. And so you know what they say. If you make 10 threats, your opponent's only going to probably be able to defend 9 of them. You know, just keep, the more threats you make, your opponent's eventually going to fall for one of them. So I really defended very well here. You can see at this point in the game, the engine says I'm at negative 3.5. And just watch that. Like, I really defend very well here. I stop all his attacks and really do a pretty solid job. You can analyze this later if you want. I think this video is going on a wee bit long, so I'm not going to. But you can see here, yeah, I'm -6, -7, but I still managed to hold off pretty well. And here, -7. Yeah, here I should have just played e2, and like, yeah, he can take me and I take him, and then he can go here. But I mean, at least a knight is okay against a rook, but I didn't go for that. Instead, I took this pawn, and he goes in for the checkmate on a1. Beautiful checkmate. King can't go anywhere. Queen is protecting everything, and the rook's protecting the queen. So I lost in game 4. I was a wee bit upset about this loss because the next day I had to take a bye because I got to go to church. I'm a Christian and I need to go worship God on a Sunday. So we had to take a half point in game 5. And I was thinking, I got a half point in a game. I lost the game where I don't get any points. 3.5 points. I only have one more game to play. I'm probably not going to win. I need a bit of things to go luck in my favor, you know. We only got one more game. But let me jump into the final game of the tournament. A really exciting one against Tim, who I've got a picture of here. And I had played Tim, and he had beaten me last time I played against him. I had the white pieces in the last time I played him, and I did think I really outplayed him, and then I blundered a back ranker, and he beat me. This time, I was not going to let that happen. So, check out how we played against Big Tim in game 6 of the tournament. My game 5 because we took a bye, but let me show you what happens. I'm just going to run through this game super fast because this video is already at 50 minutes and that's too much chess for one day. So I'm very sorry for that. But we play with a very high accuracy this game. D4, D5, Knight C3, Knight F6, Bishop F4. And he goes for this different move, C6. Last time he brought the bishop out, I believe. And we started the pawn storm immediately. Bishop out to here, I should say, F5. But he does still do that. So we're able to go for our typical attack here. We know all the moves here. He pulls his knight back. And here I pull my bishop out to D3. Now, when he moved his bishop here, if your opponent doesn't take you on D3 when you do this Jabava pawn storm, every single time you should be taking this on the next move because it doubles his pawns. And for some reason, I didn't do it. I instead decided to just develop something stupid and give up my advantage. And I was kind of frustrated when I did this. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it. We take. I don't have much of an advantage, but I did. And I gave it all up. I decided instead to try to push my pawns in the center here. And he played this very interesting move, F5. And maybe some of you who are new to chess don't know about the rule en passant. But I take that pawn in passing and he recaptures me. I move my knight back in looking at this pawn and he defends it. So he's defending it twice right now. I'm attacking it twice. So I attack it 3 times, 3 pieces attacking it. And so he tries to defend it 3 times with a discovery defense with his queen. But here, he didn't see this little tactic. I took his pawn over here. Yes, he can take my knight, but then I would win his rook. So he can't actually move this pawn. So when I made this move, he went like he missed it. So I knew that I was doing okay here. He moves his knight back, and I decide to move my knight back. So I'm just up a pawn, same position as it was a couple minutes ago. He moves his rook up to try to maybe double these rooks, and I take this pawn for free. I had 3 attackers, and I still had 3 attackers. So I'm going to take that. His knight here is blocking his queen's defense, so he only has 2 defenders, so he can't actually take it. So here he brings his other rook in. And I actually spent quite a lot of time here, probably like 20 minutes considering this, because I knew that his rook was going to come in, and I didn't know, like, sometimes when you move a piece in and then they attack it and it's pinned, like let's say I move it and then he can come in here and checkmate me on the back rank like he did last time I played him. But I was able to just figure this out, and I knew that I could take here, he could take here, I could take back, he could take back, and I can take with the knight. Then he'd take my knight over here on f8 and I could check. He moves his king. So I kind of calculated to this point and I saw, okay, I'm still up 2 pawns. I'm probably doing okay. However, there was a bunch of other lines that I did consider. I thought about just defending with the pawn, and I eventually realized that this wasn't so strong. So that was the line that we did go for, the big trade of pieces. I really like that I had this check at the end of the continuation because it puts my queen in a central square where I'm able to maybe push these 2 pawns and the queen's already ready to defend it. He moves his king forwards. I move my knight in and he moves his queen here looking for a checkmate on the back rank. Tim, you're a sneaky man. You better stop trying to get me with this because I'm afraid of it and I don't like it. But thankfully we were able to block it, and I thought maybe we could swap off here. But he actually does the best move here, moves his king over, because if I swap off here, then his king's even closer to my pawns. I didn't want to allow that. So I just bring my knight in. He pulls his king back and comes around this way. I move my king up because I'm like, I don't want to just accidentally move this and then get spanked on the back rank. He moves his knight over to attack my queen, and so now I feel fairly confident about swapping off the pieces, and I decide I'll start attacking on this side of the board, try to open stuff up. When I have a pawn on this side, maybe I can get a pawn on this side and spread the position so that we have threats in multiple areas of the board. Here I went for this move, and it was at this point in the game Tim kind of realized, okay, he could try to save his knight. Like, let's say he goes b8, then I win a pawn, I win material. So the only way for me to not win material is for him to swap off pieces. So here I don't win material, but I do have this extra pawn, and I'm able to just eat this pawn and then promote this one. And it was quite funny here at the end. I moved my king all the way up just to keep opposition, and then I realized I had to come back down the board to get my pawn back, and he laughed, I laughed. And here he resigned, and he said, I don't doubt that you're able to find a checkmate here. And I don't think I would have struggled to, but it was kind of funny that I had to move my king up, and then I moved it back. Yeah, I really enjoyed this tournament. I really enjoyed this final game, and I'm sorry I rushed through that super fast, but let's see what the engine says about our accuracy. 91. So that's 2 games in the 90s, 2 games in the 80s, and that other game that I lost, I'll just show you super quick. We got a 76. So 1 game that wasn't so good. But honestly, what a good tournament. I was super excited about how well I performed. We actually played so well that we got 2nd place at the FIDE Classic under 1200. This might be my last time having to play in the under 1200s, because even though my rating did not come from 950 all the way up to 1200, it actually moved up to 1119. And if you're within 100 points, you can actually play up in the next section for a small extra bit of money. So I can pay slightly more to enter the tournament, and I can play against higher opponents who I'll be able to beat and steal all their rating from, and I'll advance even quicker than I've been advancing. So I was very excited about that. The only person that beat me in the bracket was that young boy who beat me in game 4. He played very well, and he won all 6 of his games. I came in 2nd place with 4.5, 3rd place and 4th place and 5th place and 6th place all were tied with 4 points. So I actually performed slightly better than all of them. Surprised. But that was a really fun tournament. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope this encourages you to play classic chess. It's a lot of fun. And I know this video's super long, so I'm just going to end it here. Thanks for watching. See you lads next week.